5 ways to get tech debt prioritized. So you're a programmer, you're working in a code base where it's no fun for some reason. Maybe there's some old code, maybe there is some poorly typed code, poorly documented code, hard to read code, risky code, and it's making you take longer to develop. It makes things harder to debug. It makes you feel nervous when you're shipping to production. You have to overtest manually. You can't do a bunch of automated testing, and it takes a bunch of your time to do that manual testing to make your confidence better. Or you are shipping features to production and then you have to spend a lot of time bug fixing because you're rushing and you're breaking things. And so you would feel a lot better if it just worked the first time. Let's not bother our users with something that we know, right? So that's risky code, dangerous code. Okay, these are some of the reasons that you might want to escalate your tech debt and get it worked on. But how do you make the case to management? I'll give you 5 specific techniques under 2 umbrellas. The umbrellas are: 1, you make a justification, and 2, you don't. How can we get work prioritized with no justification? Well, it turns out that the feeling you have that I'm anxious, or I would just like to do X, or it would just be more fun for me to do X, employers do value this. So here we're talking about developer satisfaction, developer joy, and employers actually care about retention. So you can just say, hey, I'm going to work on this because I want to. But you can only do that some of the time. You can't allocate your whole backlog to that. So without justification, if you're just saying, hey, I want to work on this because it's what I want to work on, actually employers will let you do that some of the time. And so 5 techniques, 2 of them fall into this. 1 is you can do something like a Google's 20% or 10%, where it's kind of like a learning and training thing for you, or a tinkering time where you can work on whatever libraries you want. And so this is going to be individual level. And you work it out with your manager, you work it out with your team, that either you specially, or maybe on your team, it's a team culture thing, that people on your team get access to this 5, 10, 20% time where they can experiment with tinkering with different libraries, or optionally work on tech debt if that's what they want to do. And there's really no expectation of return here. The expectation is that it will be for your own learning and growth and development and joy. The other thing that you can do is you can schedule an event, like an internal hackathon or an internal tech debt sprint. And so this will not be particular to you. This will involve some group of people. Maybe it's your team. Maybe it's, some group of people that are involved. And this could be done on maybe an annual basis or something like that. In my experience, it's pretty hard to get one of these a quarter. You could get 1 or 2 of these a year. And I've seen that happen at a lot of companies. So these do not necessarily have, it's always a nice to have if you can get a tangible benefit, but there's not necessarily an expectation for a tangible benefit. It's more just about the joy and the learning and the growth and the working together with people. And employers will allow some capacity under these unjustified prioritization techniques to get your tech debt fixed. Now let's talk about if you actually want to prioritize and you want your tech debt to be compared on an equal footing to feature code. Now you need to make a business case. So how do you do that? Here's a few ways. 1, it starts with observability. You need to have a definition of what good code looks like. Then you need to measure. So this is observability, and you need to correlate to value. So an example of this would be measuring your test coverage or your type coverage, and you can correlate that to bugs in production or cycle time. And you can show, hey, for a 5 or 10% increase in type coverage or test coverage, we're getting faster release, we're getting fewer production outages, and there's business value that is demonstrated in that correlation. So type coverage, test coverage are pretty easy to imagine, but you can come up with a whole bunch of different measures here. Cyclomatic complexity is one that is less often talked about, but we know that complex code bases are harder to maintain. Depth of abstraction is similar to cyclomatic complexity, but it's a different measure. So you can come up with all sorts of these measures. Depth of abstraction, similar to depth of inheritance, but it doesn't need to be OOP. Like how many functions down in a call chain are you? So a simpler code base will be flatter from an abstraction perspective. So these are other measures of complexity that you can use, and you can correlate them again to developer experience, production outages, and so forth, cycle time. And another is just developer survey. So again, employers care about developer retention and developer satisfaction, and independent of employers caring, happy developers are just more effective developers. So you can simply survey people. You can survey yourself, and then hopefully, to keep it relatively objective, you're surveying multiple other developers. So I would really try to go for a minimum developer sample size of 3. But you can scale up from there. I mean, as much as people will let you survey. So you could do as little as asking 3 people, and you could go up to like asking a group of 100 engineers or more if you're able. But it doesn't need to be a big deal. You could just ask like 3, 4, 5 people. Hey, look at this script and look at this other script. And, you could tell them, or you don't need to tell them, that like one script is following some rules that you're proposing for what counts as good code and the other doesn't. Like the other is like the existing code. And on a scale of 1 to 10, like how much more comfortable do you feel? How much happier do you feel? How readable do you think each of these are? How nervous would you be to release each of these to production? How safe and secure do you feel each of these are? So you can just do a developer survey, and that can also come up with metrics that can help justify. Okay, so just to recap, we did 2 unjustified techniques. That is your personal development time, or like company events, kind of internal hackathon kind of stuff. And then we covered type coverage and test coverage, complexity, like cyclomatic complexity and depth of abstraction. And then we covered developer survey. So these were 5 different techniques that can help you prioritize. But the general principle is you can either lean on like your company culture being super nice, and there are even steps that you can take to improve your company culture, or you can go for building a business case. And these will be 2 really powerful tools to help you get that tech debt solved. Follow for more.